sit down. I need to talk to you about something that nobody in the medical establishment is going to bring up at your next appointment, because if they did, they would lose a considerable amount of business. My name is Martha Rose. I am 102 years old. I live alone, I manage my own affairs, and I have never spent a single night in a nursing home. The doctors who told me over the years that I needed to be more careful, slow down, take this medication, follow this protocol, most of those doctors are no longer practicing. Some of them are no longer anything at all. I am still here. Now, I want to talk to you today about something that is going to sound strange at first. I want to talk about habits that are sold to you as healthy, genuinely, earnestly presented to seniors as the right thing to do, that are quietly, systematically accelerating the loss of your independence. Habits that look like wisdom but function like slow surrender. And I want to name them plainly because I've watched too many capable people follow this advice directly into a facility they never wanted to be in. The nursing home industry is not built on sick people who had no options. It is built in large part on people who were given the wrong advice by people who meant well. I am not going to give you the wrong advice. Let's go. Number 1. Taking every pill they prescribe without question. Now let me be careful here because I am not telling you to stop taking medication you genuinely need. I am not a doctor and I am not giving medical advice. I am telling you what I have observed over 102 years, and what I have observed is this: the number of pills a person takes does not correlate with how well they live. In a great many cases it correlates inversely. They call it polypharmacy. That is the medical term for being on multiple medications simultaneously. And what that word means in plain terms is this: your body is trying to manage a chemistry experiment it was never designed for. Every medication has side effects. When you take 5, 6, 7, 8 medications, those side effects interact with each other in ways that no study has ever fully mapped, because the studies test one drug at a time and almost nobody takes one drug at a time. The most common side effects of multiple medications in older adults are falls, confusion, dizziness, and fatigue. Falls lead to fractures. Fractures lead to hospitalization. Hospitalization in an older person frequently leads to a level of decline that makes returning home impossible. And the medication that caused the dizziness that caused the fall was prescribed with genuinely good intentions by a doctor who was following the guidelines. My mother took almost no medication her entire life. Neither did my grandmother. They were not healthy by accident. They ate real food, they moved constantly, they slept well, they stayed connected to community and purpose. They never accumulated the list. I am not against medicine. I am against the assumption that more medicine is always better medicine, and I am against the passivity of taking everything handed to you without asking what each thing does, what it interacts with, and whether the benefit is worth the risk. Ask those questions. You are entitled to the answers. Number 2, eating a low-fat diet because they told you to. Child, please. I have been watching this particular piece of advice damage people's health for decades, and I still have not lost my capacity for frustration about it. Starting in the 1970s and accelerating through the 1980s and 1990s, the food industry, with the cooperation of government nutritional guidelines that were influenced by the food industry, told Americans that fat was the enemy. Low-fat everything. Fat-free this. Reduced fat that. And into every low-fat product they put sugar, refined carbohydrates, and chemical stabilizers to make it palatable, because food without fat tastes like cardboard, and they knew you would not eat it voluntarily. The result was not better health. The result was an explosion in obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and cognitive decline. The very diseases the low-fat advice was supposed to prevent got dramatically worse during the decades that advice was most aggressively followed. Here is what fat actually does in your body in plain language. Your brain is approximately 60% fat. It requires fat to function, to maintain the insulation around your nerve fibers, to produce the hormones that regulate mood and cognition and inflammation. When older adults eat low-fat diets, they are literally starving their brains of the building material those brains need to stay sharp. The scientists have a term for the fatty insulation around your nerve fibers. They call it myelin. And in plain terms, it is the coating that makes your nervous system work properly, the way rubber coating makes an electrical wire work properly. Myelin is made from fat. When you do not eat enough fat, the myelin suffers. When the myelin suffers, cognitive function suffers. When cognitive function suffers significantly enough, someone decides you need supervised care. I have eaten eggs every morning of my life. I cook with butter and real olive oil. I eat full-fat dairy without apology or guilt. I eat meat, I eat nuts, I eat avocado when I can get a good one. The good Lord put fat in food because your body requires it. He did not make a nutritional error that the food industry needed to correct. Eat real fat from real food and stop buying the low-fat products that are making the companies rich and making you less well. Number 3. Resting when you feel tired instead of moving through it. Now, I talked about this in a previous conversation, and I am going to come at it from a different angle today because it is that important and because the specific damage it does to your independence deserves more than one examination. There is a habit that settles into a lot of people after they retire or after some health event, and that habit is resting as a first response to discomfort. Knee hurts, rest it. Back aches, rest it. Feeling tired, rest. Feeling stiff in the morning, stay in bed a little longer. And I understand the logic. I do. It feels like you are being kind to yourself. It feels like wisdom. It feels like listening to your body. But here is what is actually happening when you rest as a default response. Your muscles are atrophying. Your joints are stiffening. Your balance is deteriorating because balance is a skill that requires daily practice to maintain. Your cardiovascular system is becoming less efficient. And your brain is receiving less blood flow, less oxygen, and less of the chemical signals that movement produces, including what the scientists call BDNF, which in grandma terms is the fertilizer your brain uses to grow and maintain connections. Every week of significant inactivity in an older adult produces measurable decline. Not over years, over weeks. The body reads inactivity as a signal that it is no longer needed and begins the process of scaling back accordingly. Muscle is metabolically expensive to maintain. If you are not using it, your body decides it cannot afford to keep it. I had a neighbour, she passed some years back, who retired at 65, sat in a recliner for the better part of a decade watching television because she said she had worked hard her whole life and deserved to rest and was in a facility by 78. She was a kind woman. She was not lazy. She was following a culturally approved narrative about what rest looks like and what retirement means, and that narrative took her independence. Move every day. Not a marathon. Not the gym if you do not want the gym. Walk to the window. Walk to the mailbox. Work in the garden. Sweep the floor. Carry your own groceries. Ask your body to work and it will keep working. Give it a permanent vacation and it will take one. Number 4, avoiding salt. Entirely because the doctor said so. Now this one is going to make some people nervous, and I want to be precise about what I am saying because precision matters here. I am not telling you to eat enormous amounts of processed food full of sodium, which is an entirely different situation. Processed food sodium is paired with all the other damaging components of processed food, and the combination is genuinely harmful. I am talking about real salt, good salt, sea salt, mineral-rich salt, used appropriately on real food. And I am talking specifically about what happens to older adults who reduce their salt intake dramatically on medical advice without considering the consequences. Your body requires sodium to function. Full stop. Sodium regulates fluid balance, nerve transmission, muscle contraction, and blood pressure. When sodium levels in the blood drop too low, and this happens to older adults on low-sodium diets more often than most people know, you get confusion, weakness, nausea, and in serious cases, falls and altered mental status. The medical term is hyponatremia. In grandma terms, it means your body does not have enough salt to run its systems, and it starts shutting non-essential functions down first, which from the outside can look alarmingly like cognitive decline. Researchers have consistently found that in older adults, the risk of very low sodium is at least as concerning as the risk of very high sodium, and that aggressive salt restriction without monitoring can cause harm. My grandmother salted her food. Not recklessly, but without fear. She used good salt, the coarse, mineral-rich kind, and she said food without proper seasoning was an insult to the cook and a disappointment to the Lord who provided it. She was not wrong. Salt your real food with real salt. Have the conversation with your doctor about your specific situation. But do not accept without question the blanket instruction to eliminate salt entirely, because that instruction in older adults has its own set of risks that you deserve to know about. Number 5. Spending most of your time alone because you don't want to be a burden. Listen to me. This one is the one that breaks my heart the most, because it comes from such a good place and does such damage. I have watched good, decent, proud people who spent their whole lives giving to others, withdraw from their families and their communities as they aged because they did not want to need anything from anyone. They stopped calling, they stopped asking for help, they stopped showing up at church or at the neighbour's house or at the family dinner because they were afraid of being too much, of being pitied, of being a burden. And I understand that instinct completely. Pride in self-sufficiency is not a bad quality. It served those people well for decades. But applied incorrectly in later life, it functions as a slow poison. The researchers have now documented what I have watched happen in real people for 100 years. Chronic social isolation has physical effects on the body that are as damaging as smoking. The loneliness elevates what they call cortisol. That is your body's alarm hormone, the one that gets released when you are in danger. And it keeps it elevated day after day after day. And chronically elevated cortisol suppresses immunity, disrupts sleep, impairs cognition, and damages cardiovascular function. A person who is isolated, even a person who is eating well and taking their medication and moving regularly, is fighting their own biology. The body was designed for community. It was designed to be in relationship with other people. When it is not, it registers that absence as a threat condition and responds accordingly. You are not a burden for needing people. You never were. The people who love you want to be with you. The community around you is diminished by your absence from it. Call somebody today. Go somewhere. Let people in. I buried 3 husbands. I have outlived 2 of my children, which is the particular grief of a very long life. I know what it means to lose people you depended on. And every single time the answer was not withdrawal. The answer was reaching toward whoever was still there. That reaching has kept me whole. Number 6. Eating less because you're not as hungry and think that's fine. Now this one is particularly sneaky because it sounds so reasonable. You are older, you are less active, your appetite has decreased, so you eat less. You are not hungry. Why force it? Here is why force it. After 60, your body becomes significantly less efficient at absorbing and using protein. The same amount of protein that maintained your muscle mass at 40 will not maintain it at 70. You need more protein as you age, not less. More protein per pound of body weight than you needed when you were young, specifically because the efficiency has declined. When appetite decreases, and it does decrease with age, for reasons including medication side effects, decreased sense of smell and taste, and reduced activity, most people stop eating adequate protein first. They have a little of this, a little of that, some crackers, some soup, a small portion, and the first thing that starts to go is muscle mass, because muscle is the most metabolically expensive tissue to maintain, and the body will sacrifice it first when resources are short. The loss of muscle mass is directly connected to falls, to reduced functional capacity, to the inability to manage activities of daily living independently. It is one of the clearest pathways from independence to dependence, and it frequently begins with the well-intentioned but mistaken decision to just eat a little less because you're not that hungry anymore. Eat enough protein every single day, not less than you used to, more. Eggs, meat, beans, sardines, dairy, seeds, whatever form works for you, in whatever combination you enjoy, but enough of it that your body has the building material it needs to keep maintaining itself. Your muscle is your independence. Feed it accordingly. Number 7, giving up on having anything worth getting up for. And here we are at the last one, the one I have waited until now to tell you, because it required you to trust me on the first 6 before you would fully hear this one. The most dangerous thing I have ever watched happen to a person was not a disease. It was not a fall. It was not a bad diagnosis. It was the quiet moment when they stopped believing that tomorrow held anything worth showing up for. I have watched people reach a point, after retirement, after loss, after the children moved away, or the purpose that organised their days disappeared, where they simply stopped investing in the future. They stopped learning new things. They stopped caring about what happened next week. They stopped making plans. They were not depressed exactly, or not only depressed, they were finished, in their own estimation, just waiting, and the body takes its cues from the spirit. I have seen this my entire life, and the science is now catching up to what observation already made plain. People who have purpose, who have something they are oriented toward, who believe that tomorrow holds something worth being present for. Those people maintain cognitive function longer, maintain physical capacity longer, recover from illness faster, and live longer. Purposelessness is not a neutral state. It is a degenerative one. The body reads it the same way it reads inactivity, as a signal that it is no longer needed, and begins the same process of scaling back. You are 102 years old, people say to me. How do you still care so much about everything? And I say, because I am still here. And as long as I am still here, I intend to be here completely, not half here. Not just technically present, actually invested in what is happening today and what might happen tomorrow. I have things to tend, this garden, these conversations. The people who write to me and say they needed to hear something I said, that matters to me. And that mattering, the feeling of being genuinely, specifically useful to this specific day, that is what gets me out of bed in the morning with more intention than most people half my age. Find yours. If you lost it somewhere along the way, to retirement, to loss, to the particular exhaustion of a long life, go find it again. Not the grand version. Not the version that requires perfect conditions, the humble version, something that needs your attention, something that benefits from your presence, something that will be slightly worse in the world if you do not show up for it. Now, here is the thing I want you to take away from all 7 of these. Every single one of them is presented as help. The medication management, the low-fat diet, the rest, the salt restriction, the quietness, the smaller portions, the acceptance that your season of purpose is behind you. All of it is offered with good intentions by people who genuinely want you to be okay. But good intentions and good outcomes are not the same thing, and at 102 years old I have had enough time to watch the difference play out in real lives to know which advice actually serves people and which advice serves the system. The system benefits from your dependence. It always has. It benefits from you taking more medications, eating the food they engineered and sold you, resting instead of moving, being isolated instead of connected, eating less of the real food your body needs. You benefit from exactly the opposite of all of those things. The Lord did not design this body to be managed by a system. He designed it to be tended by you, fed by the earth he made, sustained by the community he placed you in, and oriented toward the purpose he put in you before you were born. Tend it accordingly. I have said what I came to say. Now go call someone you have been meaning to call, and eat something real while you do it.